The wind may carry lies, but the storm will always expose the truth. They thought they were untouchable. They mocked, slandered, and trampled over you, believing there would be no price to pay. But what happens when the universe itself turns against them? When the same air they breathe becomes their poison. When their bodies betray them in ways no doctor can explain. They laughed at your pain. Now their own reflection haunts them. They wished harm upon you, and now their own shadows whisper back their curses. Before we go deeper, make sure to like and subscribe, not just for yourself, but for every other chosen one out there. Every engagement signals YouTube to spread this message further, waking up more warriors and exposing more truths. This is more than a video, it's a reckoning. Welcome, chosen ones. You are not like the rest, and that alone is enough to haunt your enemies. Your presence is a reminder of everything they are not, everything they will never be. You didn't need to fight them. Your existence itself was a war they were never prepared for. They tried to silence you, to break you, to make you question your own power. But the universe keeps receipts. Every lie, every betrayal, every act of malice, stacked like bricks in the walls of their own downfall. The chosen do not chase revenge. We don't need to. The very energy they put out has circled back, sharper than a knife, more ruthless than they ever imagined. They ignored the warnings. Now they wake up suffocating under the weight of their own actions. No medicine can cure what they've been given. No money can buy their way out. No connections can shield them from what's coming next. They are learning the hard way. When the universe collects its debts, it doesn't take partial payments. The power of being chosen is a double-edged sword. To you, it is a gift. To them, it is a nightmare. They see you rise, and they tremble. They hear your name, and their stomach turns. Why? Because even in their greatest moments, they know they are still beneath you. They spent years hoping you'd fail. Instead, they are the ones unraveling. You moved forward. They are stuck in the same cycle, fighting battles they created for themselves. Look at them now, paranoid, desperate, running in circles trying to escape the very energy they unleashed. You never had to lift a finger. The universe is handling it for you. And this is just the beginning. And thank you. Yes, you, the chosen one. Your energy is what keeps this truth alive. Whether you're here for the first time or you've been walking this path for a while, know this: your presence is no accident. The universe led you here for a reason. If you're ready to step fully into your power, to watch karma do what it does best, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments, a number of divine justice. Let the world know that you see what's happening and you're ready for what comes next. And now, let's break it all down, step by step. If you're truly chosen, you'll feel it, that unshakable pull to stay until the very end. Because once you see what's unfolding, you'll never look at your enemies the same way again. Let's get started. Number 1. The clock struck 0. Now they pay the price. The rope of deception may be long, but it always has an end, and when it snaps, the fall is fatal. They thought they were winning. Every lie, every betrayal, every backstab, they counted them as victories. They walked with their heads high, convinced that silence meant safety, that their cruelty would never catch up to them. They mistook mercy for permission. But the clock has struck 0. The countdown they ignored is over. And now they wake up to a reality where the very air around them turns against them. Their bodies betray them. Their luck runs dry. The same universe they thought was asleep has opened its eyes, and it is not pleased. This isn't random. This isn't bad luck. This is precision. Every ignored warning was a thread in the web that now traps them. Every arrogant act was another stone in the walls that now enclose them. They were given exits, but they laughed and stayed on the road of destruction. Now, that road has no turns, no detours, just a straight, irreversible path to consequence. And the chosen ones, we are not surprised. We felt this coming before it even arrived. Because being chosen means you don't have to lift a finger. Your very existence is a war cry in the ears of your enemies. You stand in a room and their stomach turns. You speak and their pulse quickens. Why? Because you are a reminder of everything they tried to destroy but failed. Your resilience mocks their attempts. Your success makes their bitterness unbearable. They thought they could break you, but instead they broke themselves. And now, the downfall has begun. It doesn't come with sirens or flashing warnings. It starts slow, like a whisper they can't quite hear. A lost opportunity here, a sudden misfortune there. And before they even realize what's happening, the dominoes begin to fall. First, doors stop opening. Those effortless wins, gone. That influence they flexed, fading. They make calls, but no one answers. They seek favors, but hands that once reached for them now stay in pockets. Then their own people start walking away. The ones who clapped for them in the good times are now nowhere to be found. The same way they left others stranded, now they stand alone. Their empire turns to dust, not with an explosion but with a quiet, steady collapse. And finally, the sickness sets in, not just in their bodies, but in their minds, their finances, their very foundation. The money that once saved them can't help them now. The connections they relied on are suddenly powerless. Their hands shake, their sleep vanishes, their days turn into battles against shadows only they can see. They try to pray, but prayers taste like ash in a mouth that only ever spoke curses. They seek an escape, but how do you run from something that lives inside you? This isn't karma in its slow, poetic justice form. This is judgment, swift and ruthless. The same patience they mocked has transformed into a force they can't bargain with. No second chances, no rewinds, just the weight of their own choices crashing down like an unrelenting storm. And here's the best part, we don't even need to watch. Because the chosen ones? We're too busy rising. The more they suffer, the higher we go. The same energy they used to destroy us is now fueling our elevation. They thought they could break us. Instead, they wrote their own downfall. And now, they aren't laughing anymore. Number 2. Their sickness runs deeper than the body. It's a curse that devours everything. When the rot starts from within, no amount of paint can hide the decay. At first, they shrug it off. Just a bad day. Just stress. Just a little exhaustion. They tell themselves they'll bounce back, that nothing can really touch them. But this isn't something they can shake off. This isn't just fatigue, a headache or a sleepless night. This is their entire foundation crumbling from the inside out. The same mind that once thrived on manipulation now works against them. They second-guess every move, fumble every decision, and watch as the same tricks they used on others turn into their own worst nightmare. They were once sharp, calculating, always 2 steps ahead. Now, they hesitate, they forget, they drown in their own paranoia. They can't trust themselves anymore, because deep down, they know they are losing. And what's worse than a sick body? A restless mind that refuses to let them escape. At night, their demons wake up. The whispers of their own past mistakes crawl into bed with them, stealing their peace, suffocating their thoughts. Anxiety replaces arrogance. Confidence turns to doubt. And no matter how much they try to drown it out with distractions, it lingers, getting louder, heavier, more unbearable. They thought they were untouchable. Now, they are trapped in the very prison they built for others. Power once made them feel invincible. The control, the intimidation, the ability to twist situations in their favor, it fed their ego. But now it all feels hollow. The victories they used to celebrate feel meaningless. The people they once commanded are slipping through their fingers. The mask they wore for years is cracking, and underneath, they are nothing but a shell of who they used to be. They mocked faith, dismissed morality, and laughed at warnings. But now they crave the very peace they once ridiculed. They search for something, anything, that can quiet the storm inside them. They chase after fulfillment, hoping to find it in power, in possessions, in control. But the universe is not answering them. They spent their entire life rejecting the truth. Now, the truth has rejected them. This sickness isn't just eating away at their health. It's devouring their reputation, their influence, their entire legacy. They built their empire on lies, manipulation, and control. And now, that empire is turning to dust. The respect they once demanded? Gone. The loyalty they once relied on? Vanished. People around them don't even hate them. They just stay away. They can feel it, the energy, the curse, the downfall. And no one wants to be caught in the wreckage when it all collapses. Their name, once spoken with admiration or fear, is now just a quiet warning, a lesson, a reminder of what happens when you think you can outrun consequences. The same people who once followed them now look at them with pity, not because they feel sorry for them, but because they know this is only the beginning. They thought consequences were for other people. They believed they were immune to downfall, immune to the very forces that govern the universe. They thought their wealth, their status, their connections could buy them out of anything. But what happens when the sickness isn't just physical? What happens when it's in their mind, their spirit, their very existence? No amount of money can buy peace of mind. No doctor can fix a soul rotting from the inside out. No power can erase the weight of every action that led them here. And the worst part? They are still alive to witness every piece of their life fall apart. They have become a living tragedy. And now, they know exactly what it feels like to be powerless. Number 3. The delay was their trap, and now the cage has slammed shut. A fool mistakes silence for safety, never realizing that still waters can hide the deadliest storms. They thought they were winning. Every deception, every betrayal, every underhanded move, they counted them as victories. They walked with their heads high, convinced they had cracked the code of consequence, that the rules of cause and effect didn't apply to them. They saw the silence as a free pass, the lack of immediate punishment as proof that they were untouchable. But what they didn't realize was that the delay wasn't mercy. It was a slow, deliberate setup. Every extra day they thought they were getting away with it was just more time for them to expose their true nature. They weren't slipping through the cracks. They were digging their own graves, deeper and deeper, with every choice they made. The worst kind of trap is the one that doesn't look like a trap at all. They thought they were moving freely when, in reality, they were just tightening the chains around their own neck. Every ignored warning, every act of arrogance, every chance they had to change but refused to take. It all added weight to the collapse that was waiting for them. And now, the floor beneath them has disappeared. One moment, they were on top, untouchable, laughing at the ones they had stepped on to get there. The next, surrounded, strangled, drowning in a downfall they never saw coming. Their hands reach out, searching for something to hold on to, but there's nothing. because the only thing left is the weight of their own choices. They were never safe, just blind. Now, as they look back, it all starts making sense. The warnings weren't empty threats. They were tests that they failed over and over again. Every chance to change was an opportunity they spat on, convinced that they could outrun what was coming. They could have stopped. They could have chosen differently. But they didn't. And why? Because their pride told them they had time. Their ego whispered that there would always be another way out. That they were too smart, too powerful, too well connected to ever face real consequences. Now, time has run out. And the worst part? They can't even say they weren't warned. The tension in the air before the storm, the unease creeping into their nights, the subtle shifts in their reality. They felt it. They just ignored it. They thought they had mastered the game, but the game was never in their hands to begin with. They mistook delay for escape. They mistook silence for absence. And now they finally understand, but far too late. Patience was never permission. It was the final countdown, and the clock just hit 0. Number 4. They built their own curse. Now it's tearing them apart. The fire they lit for others has turned into the inferno that consumes them. They thought they were clever. Every scheme, every betrayal, every time they twisted the truth to serve their own purpose. They did it with confidence, believing they were untouchable. They laughed at consequences, dismissed warnings, and moved through life as if cause and effect were just myths told to weaker minds. They convinced themselves that what they did in the dark would never see the light, that they could play their games forever and always walk away unscathed. But what they failed to understand is energy doesn't disappear. Every action, every lie, every attack, they weren't throwing these things into thin air. They were planting seeds. And now, their harvest has arrived. What's happening to them isn't some random misfortune, some stroke of bad luck they can blame on circumstances. This is the weight of their own deeds coming back to crush them, the sickness spreading through their life. It was crafted by their own hands. At first, they won't believe it. Denial will be their first response. They'll call it stress, a minor setback, a rough patch that will pass. They'll try to convince themselves that it's just an unfortunate phase, but deep down, something gnaws at them. A whisper they can't quite silence, an unease they can't explain. Because their world isn't just falling apart, it's decaying. The sickness isn't just in their body, it's in their reality. The things they once controlled now slip through their fingers like sand. The people they once manipulated now keep their distance. The influence they once flexed so easily now feels like a ghost of what it used to be. And here's the thing, this didn't happen overnight. The walls didn't just crumble. The cracks were forming all along. They just refused to see them. Because when you build a house on deception, it doesn't collapse in one grand explosion. No, it rots from within, slowly, silently, until one day the foundation gives out, and there's nothing left but ruin. That's what they're facing now. The slow, merciless realization that the very things they used to rise are now pulling them down. They thought they were outsmarting fate, but all they were doing was tightening the rope around their own necks. They thought they were powerful, but all they were doing was trading short-term wins for long-term destruction. And now there's no running from what they set in motion. They were warned. Over and over again, they were given chances to change, to turn back, to undo the damage they caused. But they didn't listen. They didn't want to. Because the illusion of control was too sweet, the feeling of dominance too addicting. They thought they had mastered the game. But they weren't playing the game. The game was playing them. And now it's over. What once gave them power now leaves them weak. The energy they sent out has circled back, and it's relentless, it's ruthless, and it will not stop until the debt is paid in full. The worst part? They can't escape themselves. The sickness isn't just external, it's internal. It's in their thoughts, their choices, their very existence. Everywhere they turn, they are confronted with the weight of their own actions. Their body fails them, their mind betrays them, their spirit withers under the pressure of everything they created. No doctor can heal them. No amount of money can buy relief. Because this isn't something that can be treated. This is the manifestation of every wrong they refuse to make right. And now they finally understand. But it's too late. They can't undo what's been done. They can't erase the past. And worst of all, they are still here, still breathing, forced to watch everything unravel, knowing they did this to themselves. There is no one left to blame, because the hands that shaped this nightmare were always their own. Number 5. They laughed too soon. Now the joke is on them. A fool celebrates too early, not realizing the race isn't over until the finish line is crossed. They laughed. Oh, how they laughed. Every time they betrayed you, every time they slandered your name, every time they watched you struggle, they found joy in it. Your pain was their entertainment. They mocked your setbacks, dismissed your resilience, and convinced themselves that they had won. They walked around with smug smiles, confident that they had broken you, that their actions would have no consequences, that they were too clever, too connected, too powerful to ever face the fallout. They thought the silence meant safety, but what they didn't realize was that they were laughing in the middle of the story, not at the end. Because while they were celebrating, the real ending was being written. And now the joke isn't funny anymore. The very things they took pride in, their control, their deception, their ability to manipulate situations in their favor, have turned against them. The tricks that once worked so effortlessly now fail them at every turn. Their words, once weapons, now sound empty. Their influence, once unquestioned, now weakens by the day. They thought they had secured their victory, but all they did was speed up their own downfall. Because the universe doesn't operate on their timeline. It doesn't react. It calculates. It waits. It watches. And when the moment is right, it delivers a lesson that cannot be ignored. That's what's happening now. They mistook temporary advantage for permanent success. They mistook your struggles for their triumph. They mistook their delay and consequences as an escape from them. And now, reality is catching up. Their world isn't just shifting, it's collapsing. The cracks they ignored are splitting wide open. The foundation they thought was unshakable is crumbling beneath their feet, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. At first, they'll pretend nothing is wrong. They'll brush it off, tell themselves it's just bad luck, a temporary misfortune. But as the failures mount, as the betrayals they once dealt are returned to them tenfold, they will begin to understand. This isn't random. This is a reckoning. They laughed when you suffered. Now, they are the ones losing sleep. They laughed when you struggled. Now, they are the ones suffocating under the weight of their own choices. They laughed when they thought they had won. But now, they see they never won anything at all. Because their victories were built on deception, their success was borrowed, and the universe has come to collect its debt. And the price is everything they thought was theirs to keep. One by one, they lose it all. Their power fades, their relationships crumble, their finances dry up. The people who once cheered for them now avoid them. Not because they've suddenly grown a conscience, but because no one wants to be around someone marked for downfall. And the worst part? They did this to themselves. They spent so much time trying to destroy you that they never stopped to realize they were destroying themselves. Because the energy you put out always returns. They laughed at your pain. Now, their own reflection haunts them. They laughed at your isolation. Now, they sit alone, abandoned by the same people they once controlled. They laughed when you had nothing. Now, they finally understand what that feels like. But here's the difference. You survived it. You rose from it. You were built to endure. Them, they are not built like you. They don't know how to handle loss, how to face their own darkness, how to navigate the emptiness they once wished upon you. And that's what makes this so painful for them. Because for the first time in their lives, they are powerless. Powerless against the truth, powerless against their own regrets, powerless against the same forces they thought they controlled. They thought their laughter was the final note in the story, but the final note is silence. And now, that silence is deafening. Number 6. Their power was a loan, not a gift. Now the debt is due. The throne they sat on was never theirs. It was borrowed. And now the real owner has come to collect. They walked as if they ruled the world, untouchable, unshakable. They carried themselves with the arrogance of someone who believed their power was permanent, that their influence was written in stone. They thought they were chosen, but they were only temporary, because real power, it is not given to the wicked. What they had was never truly theirs. It was a loan, not a gift. And loans must be repaid, with interest. For a while it seemed like they were invincible. Everything they touched turned to gold. Their words commanded attention. Their influence shaped the world around them. They could destroy reputations, bend rules, and rewrite narratives. But what they failed to understand is that power doesn't belong to them. It never did. They were simply borrowing it. And now the universe has come to collect. They thought their authority was their birthright, that their success was a result of their own genius, that their ability to manipulate, to deceive, to control, was proof that they were above the system. But they were never above the system. They were just on borrowed time. And now, the clock has hit zero. They feel it, the shift. The slow, merciless withdrawal of everything they thought they owned. The people who once bowed at their feet now look away. The opportunities that once flowed freely now dry up. The effortless power they wielded, slipping through their fingers like sand. At first, they refuse to believe it. Denial is their first response. They convince themselves it's just a rough patch, just a temporary misstep. But as the days pass, as the losses mount, as the very foundation they stood on begins to crack beneath them, they realize, this isn't an accident. This is the balance being restored. Because when power is misused, it is taken away. They thought they could play the game forever, that they could build their kingdom on the backs of others and never pay the price. That as long as they kept winning, there would be no consequences. But what they failed to understand is power demands responsibility. And when you refuse to be responsible, it is stripped away. They laughed when they were at the top, convinced that the silence of the universe meant permission. They believed they had mastered the system, that the rules didn't apply to them. But the truth? The universe was never blind. It was just patient. Because when a thief steals, he's not caught immediately. He's allowed to enjoy his stolen riches, to grow comfortable in his illusion of victory, until the day the hand of justice knocks at his door. And now, the knock has come. One by one, everything they built is taken from them. The reputation they held so dearly, tarnished. The relationships they relied on, vanished. The the wealth they thought could shield them, dissolving. No phone calls can reverse this. No connections can buy their way out. Because this isn't a punishment from men. This is the universe correcting its course. They watch as everything slips away, as the very people they used to control walk away without a second thought. Not because they have suddenly grown a conscience, but because no one wants to stand next to a sinking ship. They thought they were at the top forever. Now they are learning what it feels like to be at the bottom. They thought power was their reward. Now they understand it was only ever a test. And they failed. Because true power is never about control. It is about wisdom. It is about knowing that what is given can always be taken away. They misused the loan they were given. And now the debt is being collected, and they are left with nothing. Number 7. The ones they trusted most will be the first to betray them. The same hands they shook will be the ones that stabbed them in the back. They thought they had built an unbreakable circle, a fortress of people who would always stand beside them, defend them, protect them. They handpicked their allies, carefully surrounding themselves with those who cheered for their victories and justified their wrongs. They believed loyalty was something they could buy, control, or demand. But what they didn't realize was that a circle built on fear, manipulation, and self-interest is not a circle at all. It's a time bomb waiting to explode. And now, that explosion has begun. The same people they once controlled are slipping through their fingers. The ones who used to stand behind them are quietly stepping away. The voices that once echoed their lies are whispering against them. Because their circle was never made of loyalty. It was made of convenience. And when convenience turns to chaos, loyalty vanishes. They mistook compliance for devotion. They mistook fear for respect. They mistook silence for support. But now they are seeing the truth, painfully, brutally, and without mercy. Their circle was never real. It was a collection of people who stayed as long as they were benefiting, as long as they were winning, as long as it was easy, as long as there was something to gain. But now the losses have begun. And no one wants to go down with them. One by one, the people they trusted will start to turn. At first, it will be subtle, small betrayals, quiet distancing, averted gazes. They'll feel the shift, but won't want to acknowledge it. They'll tell themselves it's nothing, that they're imagining it. But then, it will become undeniable. They will hear their own name in the mouths of those they once called allies. They will watch their closest confidants suddenly side with the enemy. They will feel the weight of their own medicine, the betrayal they once served so freely now being handed back to them in doses they cannot handle. They laughed when they did it to others. Now, it's happening to them. Because when the tables turn, they turn completely. And the very people they once called their inner circle will be the ones who destroy them from the inside out. The secrets they shared will become weapons. The people they relied on will suddenly be out of reach. The ones who once defended them will now be the first to expose them. And what can they do? Nothing. They built their empire on fear, on control, on false loyalty. And when you rule with fear, you are never truly safe. Because fear only lasts as long as the power that enforces it. And their power. It's slipping. The cracks are showing. The foundation is weak. And the people they once controlled can smell the collapse coming. No one wants to be caught under the rubble. So they leave. Or worse, they turn. The same mouths that once spoke praises will now spit poison in their direction. The same hands that once helped them rise will now pull them down, and they will be completely alone. No one to run to, no one to cover for them, no one to silence the whispers when they turn into screams. Because here's the truth, Those who build their success by using people will always be destroyed by the very people they used. They thought they were the puppeteer. Now they are the puppet being discarded. They thought they were feared. Now they are forgotten. And the worst part? They will see it coming, but they won't be able to stop it. They will scramble, trying to hold it all together. They will beg, manipulate, lie, but nothing will work, because their people don't care anymore. There is nothing left to gain, nothing left to fear, nothing left to fight for. And now they finally understand what it feels like to be powerless. The ones they trusted most will be the first to betray them. And there is no one left to blame but themselves. Number 8. No one is listening. Their cries for help go unanswered. The same mouths that spoke lies now beg for relief, but all they taste is the bitterness of their own words. They never believed in consequences. They thought they were untouchable. Every action, every betrayal, every lie, they did it without a second thought, convinced that nothing could come back to haunt them. They dismissed the idea that the energy you put out always returns, that every choice builds the future you eventually have to live in. They scoffed at warnings. They ignored every sign, every moment where they could have chosen a different path. They were given chances, so many chances, to stop, to change, to correct the damage they had done, but they didn't. And now they're paying the price, because when the downfall begins, it does not stop. It does not slow down. It does not listen to apologies that come too late. Now, their world is falling apart. The doors that once opened so easily for them are locked. The people they relied on no longer pick up their calls. The safety nets they thought would always be there, gone. So now, they do something they never thought they'd have to do. They beg. Not out loud, not where anyone can see, but in the silence of their own mind, in the sleepless nights where regret feels like a noose tightening around their throat. They whisper desperate words, pleading for relief, for escape, for anything to stop the chaos that has taken over their lives. But no one is listening. No one is coming to save them. Because this is not an accident. This is not bad luck. This is the reality they created with their own hands. The same way they left others stranded, now they stand alone. The same way they silenced others, now their own voice falls on deaf ears. They spent years tearing others down, thinking it made them stronger. Now they have no strength left. They spent so much time making enemies that now there is no one left to be their friend. They thought they would always have power. Now, they don't even have control over their own life. And the worst part, they know exactly why this is happening. They can't pretend they don't. They can't lie to themselves anymore. They thought they could do whatever they wanted. They thought there would always be a way out. They thought they could turn things around whenever it was convenient for them. But some things cannot be undone. Some mistakes have no reset button. Some doors, once closed, never open again. Now they understand. But understanding too late? That's just another part of the punishment. Number 9. No cure exists for the inevitable. Now they must face what's coming. They spent their lives playing the game, convinced they had mastered every move, until they realized the game was never in their hands to begin with. They believed everything had a solution, a price to pay, a favor to call in, a loophole to exploit. They lived by the idea that there was always a way out, always someone to clean up the mess, always a shortcut that would let them escape the consequences of their actions. For years, it worked. A problem arose. They had money, a scandal surfaced, they had people to cover it up. A mistake was made. They had connections to make it disappear. every setback was just another challenge to manipulate their way out of, another moment to prove that the rules didn't apply to them. They built an empire on the illusion of control, believing that as long as they had power, they would never have to pay for the damage they caused. But now they face something none of those things can fix. Doctors run tests, but the results make no sense. Treatments fail. The best specialists, the ones who can cure the incurable, the ones money can buy, are shaking their heads, confused, helpless, defeated. Because this isn't a disease of the body, it's a sentence. And there is no medicine, no therapy, no treatment that can undo what has already been set in motion. They would give everything they have for relief, but what's happening to them doesn't take payments. Money, which once solved everything, is now worthless. Influence, which once gave them power, is now fading into irrelevance. The people they once controlled, once intimidated, once leaned on, they're nowhere to be found. Because when power starts slipping, when the empire starts to fall, loyalty disappears. Now their calls go unanswered. The ones who once clung to them now keep their distance, sensing what's coming. The powerful figures they once relied on, silent, distant, uninterested, because no one wants to be tied to a sinking ship. They reach out, desperate for someone to pull them out, but the hands they once crushed now refuse to extend a lifeline. And here's the truth they never expected to face. There is a way out. There is a cure, but it requires something they refuse to do. It requires them to face themselves, to acknowledge, to admit, to accept responsibility for the destruction they've caused. It requires humility, and that is the one thing they are incapable of. Because even now, even as their world collapses, even as they suffer in ways they never imagined possible, their pride still whispers that they can beat this, that they can outthink, outmaneuver, manipulate their way out one last time. That if they just try hard enough, if they just find the right angle, the right person, the right scheme, they can escape. But what they don't understand is that this isn't something they can negotiate. There are no loopholes. There are no shortcuts. There's no one left to bribe, no one left to convince, no one left to care. They had chance after chance to turn back, to change, to make things right. But every chance they were given, they threw it away. And now they remain trapped. Not because healing isn't possible, not because redemption isn't real, but because their own arrogance won't allow them to reach for it. So they suffer, not in silence, but in isolation. Not because the world is cruel, but because they wrote this ending for themselves. And the worst part, they finally see it. They finally understand. But it's too late. Number 10. Their suffering will match their sins. A perfectly crafted downfall. A thief's hands will one day tremble too much to steal. A liar's voice will one day fail them. The same tools they use to harm others will be the weapons of their own destruction. Every action they took, every selfish decision, every calculated betrayal, it all had a price. And now, that price is being collected in the most fitting way possible. There is no randomness here. This is poetic justice at its finest. They thought they were above consequence. They thought they could lie, cheat, steal, manipulate, and walk away untouched. But what they never realized is that the universe keeps perfect balance. Now, the balance has shifted. And it's not just affecting their life, it's inside of them. The lies they told, they're choking on them. Every false word they spoke, every half-truth they twisted to their advantage, every manipulation they used to control others. It's all coming back. They feel it now, suffocating them, pressing against their throat like a weight they can't remove. The words that once flowed so easily now stick in their mouth like poison. The truth they once ignored now burns inside them, clawing at their throat, demanding to be acknowledged. But they can't speak it. They've spent too many years avoiding it, and now their own voice betrays them. The hands that took what wasn't theirs, now they tremble. Every grasp for power, every stolen opportunity, every act of selfish greed, now mirrored in the way their own hands begin to wither. The same fingers that once reached for more than they deserved now struggle to hold on to anything at all. Their strength is leaving them, the way they once left others empty-handed. Their body is failing them in the exact way they failed others. Because this isn't just an illness. This is a reflection. Every symptom, every affliction, every slow deterioration, it all connects to their actions. It's as if the very fabric of their being is displaying the crimes they once thought were invisible. Their punishment isn't just being given to them, it's growing from within them. They can't escape it. They can't undo it. Because this isn't just karma. This is a mirror that no longer shows them the powerful, untouchable person they once believed they were. A mirror that doesn't hide their weaknesses behind charm, status, or control. Now, when they look at themselves, they see the truth, and they can't stand what they see. The people they once manipulated? Gone. The influence they once used to shield themselves? Fading. The power they once held over others? Slipping through their fingers like water. No doctor can diagnose this. No amount of money can fix it. No connection can shield them from what they have unleashed. Because this isn't external, it's internal. And the irony of it all, they did this to themselves. The pain they caused has returned home. The chaos they created has found its way back to its source. And now it refuses to leave. They thought they were the ones in control. But now they are nothing but victims of their own choices. And that's the worst fate of all. Number 11. The mightiest will fall, and there's no soft landing. The higher they climbed, the harder the ground will break them when they fall. They walked like giants, heads high, shoulders back, filled with the arrogance of someone who believed their position was permanent. They thought they were above the rules, above consequences, above anything that could bring them down. They weren't just strong, they made sure others knew it. They flaunted their power, their influence, their ability to manipulate and dominate. They believed the world revolved around them, that their strength made them untouchable. They looked down on those they considered weak, mocked those who struggled, laughed at those who lost. But what they never understood, strength isn't immunity. Power doesn't make you invincible. It just makes you blind to the cracks forming beneath your feet. And now those cracks have turned into a free fall. There is no safety net, no soft landing, no way to grab onto what they once controlled. Everything they built on arrogance is crumbling. The fall isn't quick. It's slow enough for them to feel every moment of it. They reach out for help, but there's no one left to catch them. The people who once cheered for them? Gone. The connections they once relied on? Useless. The same force they used to push others down is now dragging them under. And the irony? They never saw it coming. Because when you believe you are untouchable, you stop watching for the warning signs. They ignored the tension in the air, the quiet shifts in power, the subtle ways their world was beginning to weaken. They thought they were still rising, when in reality, they were standing on the edge, one misstep away from disaster. Now, they're not just falling, they are breaking. Because the strongest don't just fall, they shatter. They lose everything piece by piece, while still alive to witness it all. Their confidence? Gone. Their influence? Fading. The respect they demanded? turned into whispers of pity and ridicule. And the worst part, they know they did this to themselves, because no one stays on top forever. Not when their power was built on deception, not when their success was carved from the destruction of others, not when every step they took upward was at the expense of someone else. The climb made them feel unstoppable. The fall is showing them just how weak they really are. And now, as they watch everything collapse around them, they finally understand. Real strength was never about how high you could rise. It was about how well you could stand when the ground beneath you shook. But now, there's no ground left, and no way back up. Number 12. The ones they underestimated will be the ones who rise. They called your patience weakness. They called your humility foolish. But now, the very ground they stood on is shaking, while you remain unshaken. They thought they had won. Every insult, every dismissal, every time they acted like you didn't matter, it made them feel powerful. They convinced themselves that their arrogance was strength and that your humility was weakness. They looked at you as if you were beneath them, as if your kindness meant you lacked the ability to fight back. They mistook your silence for surrender. What they didn't realize is that the universe doesn't forget. Everything they did to you, the way they tried to humiliate you, the way they laughed behind your back, the way they acted as if they were above you, it was all being recorded, not just by time, but by the very energy they put into the world. They thought their power was permanent, that the status they held, the influence they wielded, and the fake confidence they carried would protect them forever. But nothing built on arrogance lasts. And now, they're starting to see the cracks. The same people who once praised them are starting to back away. The same false sense of control they once had is slipping through their fingers. And the most painful part? There's nothing they can do to stop it. They are watching in real time as their world unravels. The irony? You don't even need to do anything, because their own actions have already set the stage for their downfall. They thought they were invincible, but now they're scrambling, trying to fix what's beyond repair, trying to hold on to what was never really theirs, trying to rewrite a story that's already been set in motion. And while they fight against the inevitable, you stand firm, because you never needed to chase revenge. You never needed to stoop to their level. You never needed to prove yourself to people who were too blind to see your worth. And now, the proof is undeniable. The same world that dismissed you is starting to pay attention. The things they ridiculed you for, your patience, your humility, your ability to endure, are now the very things that are lifting you up while they fall. They mocked you for not reacting, for not playing their game, for not fighting back the way they expected. But now, as they deal with the fallout of their own actions, they wish they had your strength, because you didn't need to manipulate to get ahead. You didn't need to destroy others to build yourself up. You didn't need to lie, cheat, or betray to create your success. Everything you have, everything you are, was built on truth. And truth stands the test of time. Meanwhile, their empire was built on deception. And deception is always temporary. It may have looked strong from the outside. It may have convinced people for a while. But a foundation made of lies always collapses under the weight of reality. And now they're being crushed by their own creation. You don't have to watch. You don't have to gloat. You don't have to waste even a second of your energy on their downfall, because this isn't about them anymore. This is about you. You didn't need validation, but you're getting it anyway. You didn't need proof, but it's showing up in front of you. You didn't need revenge, because justice is already doing the work for you. And that's the difference between you and them. They chased power. You built strength. They forced their way to the top. You let the process shape you. They needed control. You trusted the journey. And now you're rising. Not because you fought them, not because you played dirty like they did, but because you remained steady while they destroyed themselves. Their downfall isn't just their punishment, it's your vindication. It's the world recognizing that you were right all along, that your patience wasn't naivety, that your silence wasn't weakness, and that, in the end, truth always wins. Number 13. The message wasn't for them, it was for you. Some people were never meant to understand the warning. It wasn't for them, it was for the ones strong enough to listen. They never listened, not because they couldn't, but because they didn't want to. The message was never meant for them. The signs, the warnings, the moments of truth that passed through their lives like flashing lights, they ignored them all, convinced that they were above it. They laughed at what they didn't understand, mocked what they thought didn't apply to them. And now, look at them. The very things they dismissed have come full circle. The whispers they brushed off as paranoia, the gut feelings they silenced, the uneasy moments where they felt something wasn't right, but carried on anyway. It was never just their imagination. The message was always there, but it was never meant to reach them. Because some people are beyond saving. Some people will never hear the warning, no matter how loud it gets. But you were different. You felt the pull. You recognized the signs. Even when the world tried to convince you that you were overthinking, that you were just being paranoid, that you should ignore the tension you felt in your bones, you knew better. This message, this truth, this reckoning, it was never for them. It was for you, because you were the one who needed to see, to understand, to wake up. Everything you went through, every betrayal, every loss, every moment that left you questioning why things happened the way they did, it was all leading to this. The truth was never meant to save them. It was meant to free you. They weren't supposed to get the warning. They were the warning. Look at them now. Look at what happens to those who refuse to change. They thought they had time. They didn't. They thought they could manipulate their way out of consequences. They couldn't. They thought their power, their connections, their illusions of control would last forever. They never do. But you walked away. You paid attention. You listened. That's why you're still here. That's why you're watching this unfold from the outside, not from within. Because the message wasn't meant to keep them safe. It was meant to prepare you. You were never the fool. You were never weak. You were never the one losing. You were simply the only one paying attention. And that's why you're still rising, while they're falling. And now you see it clearly. The warnings were never wasted. They just weren't meant for everyone. Some ignored them and are now drowning in their own downfall. But you listened. You understood. You chose the path that leads forward, not the one that ends in destruction. Let this be your confirmation. You were never the fool. They were. If this message resonates, like this video, subscribe and drop 77 in the comments to show you're one of the chosen who paid attention. Share this with another chosen one, because the truth needs to be heard.